my learned brother, Aruna Simon Samani, in this consolidated petition numbers CAPEPC 03, 04, and 05, 2023. I am in complete agreement with His Lordship's reasoning and conclusions on all of them. First, for petition numbers PEPC 04, 2023, that is the Allied People's Movement petition, I am of the very fixed view that the issues agitated by the petitioner therein concerning third respondents alleged disqualification by reason of matters connected to or surrounding his running mate's nomination and relinquishing of his earlier nomination by his party for the Boronu Central Senatorial District having been settled on their merit by the Supreme Court in its judgment, in appeal numbers SCCV 501, 2023, in third and first respondents' favor therein, with the apex court even holding that the said issues did not disqualify them, that decision constitutes issue estoppel, being status defining, and so judgment in rem it binds every person, including non-parties to the suit, like the petitioner in petition number CAPC 04, 2023, C. Kotun, and Oyekomi, Soson, and Odemuyiwa. Furthermore, by the doctrine of stare decisis, it also binds this court. In fact, it will, in my humble opinion, amount to judicial heresy for this court to involve itself in inquiring by whatever guise into that same issue already settled by the apex court. Coming to petition number CA03, 2020, of Peter Obi and another versus INEC and others, and CAPC 05, 2023, Atiku Abubakar and another, again, I am of the very fixed view that the two sets of petitioners did not by any means discharge the burden on them of proving that the results of the presidential election of 25th February 2023 as declared by first respondent were incorrect. Incidentally, their burden is even made heavier by the legal presumption that the votes of an election declared by the official organizing body that INEC are correct, and it is for the person asserting the contrary to prove it, Buhari and INEC. Even their resort to first respondent's failure to keep his initial promise to upload polling unit results of that election to its result being portal IREV real time, which failure the alleged evidences election manipulation, does not help them. And specifically on this allegation of manipulation of election results, the point must be made that since it is their case that from the word go that the election results in issue were manipulated by first respondent in favor of second respondent, and specifically that the manipulation took the form of quote, programmed failure of the technological device, machines, that is beavers, by first respondent by intercepting the results, quarantining, warehousing, and filtering such results before releasing them to the IREV portal. 2, INEC replacing its in-house IT expert at the 11th hour with a rogue staff, all in a bid to completely control, monitor, and filter data transmitted from the beavers devices to the electronic system. And 3, that Globacom, the internet provider for the beavers and electronic system, was also disconnected by a first respondent to enable it to manipulate the results, with the petitioners in CA, that is the article petition, even going further to undertake to call evidence to prove all those allegations. The burden of proof was on the petitioners to prove those assertions, and that is regardless of whether they are positive or negative. After all, it is they who would have failed in the case if no evidence at all was adduced in their petitions. See on that sections 131 of the Evidence Act, Buhari and INEC, Aladegbemi versus Fasomade, Elias and Disu, Dashi and another, Abrat and Railway, Northeast Railway Company. I have taken all this time in making this point because of the argument of both sets of defendants that they only made negative assertions in their petitions, when they alleged that there was nothing wrong with first respondents transmission system and IREV, so they had nobody to prove it. That the burden of proof was on the respondents who they said positively asserted glitch in real-time transmission of their results. Petitioners who directly made manipulation of its e-transmission system by first respondent to favor of second respondent, a pillar of their case, cannot be heard to say it is respondents and not them that had the burden of proof in this case. Incidentally, that assertion of petitioners that INEC simply closed down or blocked its IREV and e-transmission system from the public to enable it to manipulate the election results in favor of second respondent also takes me directly to the more important question in the petition, namely, whether that allegation is even worthy of belief, given the results declared by INEC for them and the second respondent in the election. To answer that million-dollar question, I deem it necessary to resort to the probabilities arising from the facts of the case. That test, otherwise called the probability test, which test celebrated Judge Chukwudifu Akonne Oputa, JSC, always maintained, and I quote him, is the surest road to the shrine of truth and justice. In the cases of, he said so in the case of Dibi Amaka and others, and in Ojegele and others, the first 1989 and the second 1988. I gave the citations. Here, the assertion of petitioners is that first respondent, INEC, merely used the excuse of glitch in its IRF portal to block the public from seeing its polling unit results real time so that it could manipulate, and indeed actually manipulate, the 25th February 23 presidential elections in favor of second respondent. It is their further contention that the manipulation of IREC by INEC with said phantom glitch in favor of second respondent was nationwide. The question is, do the results declared by INEC support that hypothesis? They say the taste of the pudding is in the eating. I shall therefore now try to walk us through some of these election results to see if that assertion of petitioners is supported by the results declared by INEC and so probable and worthy of belief. In doing that, I shall randomly pick on the results of some states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. I shall be relying on the state summary of the results, that is from ECD, declared by INEC and has also attached their petition by the petitioners in CAPC 05, that is Article's case, which result was also tendered by both sets of petitioners and respondents. So I take first Abia State. There, second respondent, the alleged favored candidate of INEC, for which it was said to have shut down its IREF to manipulate results, only garnered a miserly 8,914 votes. That is as against the Labour Party, which by INEC's declaration polled as many as 327,095 votes. Even the other set of petitioners, complainants, the PDP and its candidates, scored more votes in Abia than INEC's purported favored candidate. He also scored 22,676 votes in Abia and was so recorded back close to 3 times whom INEC was said to have manipulated results by closing down its IREF so that the public would not witness its manipulative activities in favor of second respondent. In Enugu State, the same favored quote-unquote candidate, second respondent, was again declared credited by INEC to have polled only 4,772 votes in the entire state. Meanwhile, the Labour Party and its candidates were again declared by manipulative and quote-unquote and unfriendly INEC to have scored as much as 428,690 votes in that state. In the same Enugu, PDP and its candidates was also declared by INEC to have polled 15,745 votes, a number that is also nearly 3 times the votes of the so-called favored second respondent. In Anambra State, the same purported favored candidate, second respondent, was declared by his alleged friend INEC to have scored only 5,111 votes. Meanwhile, the Labour Party, whose candidate, first petitioner in CAPC, I must take judicial notice of, video section 124 of the Evidence Act is from that state, again was declared to have polled as much as 584,621 votes. Again, like Enugu State, the PDP and its candidate was declared by INEC to have polled 9,036 votes, a number that is also nearly double the votes of, quote, INEC favored, end quote, second respondent. In neighboring Delta State, the same INEC favored candidate, second respondent, was declared by INEC to have scored 90,180 votes. That is as against the Labour Party and its candidates, which is credited by the same bias, quote unquote, INEC, to have scored as much as 179,917 votes. In that same Delta State, the PDP and its candidates scored 161,600 votes, again nearly double the votes of second respondent. In Adamawa State of the PDP and its candidate, the same favored second respondent was declared by INEC to have scored only 105,648 votes, while the PDP and its candidate were declared by the biased, quote unquote, INEC to have scored as much as 214,012 votes. In Imo State, the same purported INEC favored candidate, second respondent, was declared by INEC to have scored only 66,406 votes, while the Labour Party and its candidate is declared by the same INEC to have polled as much as 360,495 votes. In Ebonyi State, the Labour Party again scored as much as 259,738 votes. That is as against alleged INEC favored second respondent, who by INEC's declaration, that is his friend's declaration, again polled a relatively miserly 42,402 votes. The PDP is said to have scored 13,503 votes there. Even in Lagos State, where second respondent was once held sway as elected governor, the Labour Party and its candidate was again declared by bias, quote and unquote, INEC to have beaten second respondent with almost 10,000 votes. Labour Party was declared by INEC to have polled 582,455 votes as against 572,606 polled by second respondent and so declared by INEC. It is a similar story in the federal capital territory of Abuja, where INEC has its headquarters and supposedly carried out, directed, all its, quote, manipulative and biased activities in favor of second respondent that petitioners claim he did in the election. Second respondent and his political party still lost there. In fact, by the result, second respondent friendly, quote and unquote, INEC declared in the federal capital territory of Abuja, second respondent could not even make 25% of the votes, total votes cast there. He was said to have polled only 90,902 votes. That amounts to just 18.991% of total votes cast in the FCT, yet INEC declared that result. That is as against 281,717 votes, amounting to 58.856% of the total votes, the same INEC declared for Labour and its candidate. There are also other states, including Katsina State of the immediate past president of this country, a member of the second respondent, who was still in office at the time of the elections, in fact, as I take judicial notice of video section 124 of the Evidence Act. There again, second respondent and his party, the APC, also the then sitting president, was declared by the same INEC to have lost to the petitioners in CAPC 05-2023, that is Atiku Abubakar. Now, if all these results declared by INEC for each of the states for the two sets of petitioners and second respondent is anything to go by, then INEC must be an abysmally poor manipulator, if not even an imbecilic one. Surely, it would not go through all the stress of closing down its IREF and blocking the public from seeing its manipulative efforts in favor of second respondent, as alleged by the petitioners, only for it to still end up favoring the petitioners with jumbo votes and posting miserly figures for its favored second respondent. It is said that all men stamp as probable that which they would have said or done under similar circumstances, and as improbable that which they themselves would not have said or done under the same set of similar circumstances. Things inconsistent with human knowledge and experience are properly rated as improbable. End quote. See again Oputa GSC on this, in Onwa and the state and Bozin and the state. At any rate, why did any of the two sets of petitioners not tender even a single polling unit result issued by INEC to their polling unit agents to support their claim of manipulation of election results by INEC, even as they all agreed that they had agents in the polling units? I had thought that this is the best and most effective way of proving the manipulation of election results alleged by them. After all, the polling unit is the only place where voting takes place, and so also constitutes the building block of election results. That much is stated in paragraph 90 of INEC guidelines and for the election, and also Wobuda and Ono and Awuse and Odele. In short, the allegation of the petitioners that INEC shut down its IREF to manipulate votes for second respondent just does not add up for me. If anything, the probabilities arising from the results INEC declared nationwide as illustrated above rather seem to me to eloquently support its position that its inability to upload the polling unit results real time, as earlier promised, was not deliberate but caused by technical issues outside its control that afflicted its e-transmission system, which issues it claims made it impossible for its e-transmission system to map the uploaded polling unit results for the presidential election to any specific state. That it claimed is unlike the much smaller National Assembly elections that were conducted simultaneously with the presidential election. It is that phenomena it describes as glitch that was giving it an HTTP 500 error, which eventually resultantly delayed real-time public viewing of the said polling unit results. That conclusion also takes me to another big issue in this case, namely the evidential value of the European Union Observer Mission report on the 2023 presidential election, over which quite a mountain has been made up by both sets of petitioners. That report was tendered by the petitioners in petition number PEPC, that is Obia and another, as Exhibit X2, and by the petitioners in CEPEC 05 as Exhibit RA 27. The impression given by both sets of petitioners is that the said report which in any case has been even ruled admissible by us in petition number CAPEPC 03-2023, is like gospel truth of what happened in the election. And so it must be accepted by this court, and the conduct of the presidential election declared corrupt or at the very least below par, regardless of whether or not its authors presented themselves in court to defend their opinions. That stance, I am afraid, is a non sequitur. It's a complete non sequitur. Without the makers of that report presenting themselves in court to face cross-examination, to authenticate their opinions, that report, and I dare to add even the ECOWAS report of the same elections, tendered by second and third respondents, the petition numbers in the two petitions, are completely valueless and inadmissible for the purposes of authenticating the opinions expressed in them by the makers. See first on that the cases of Nyesom and Peter Said and Said Yakowa. It also makes no difference that the said reports have been put in the form of print. Books, it must be noted, cannot be cross-examined. On this, I find support in the celebrated case of Idudu and others versus Okumagba, where the Supreme Court, 1976, where the Supreme Court had this to say, and let me quote what the Supreme Court said. It said, as for the law involved in Idudu and Okumagba, we would like to point out that it is now well settled that there are 5 ways in which ownership of land may be proved. In our view, not only was the evidence of the witnesses, that is continuation, not only was the evidence of the witnesses called by the appellants rightly rejected by learned trial judge for good and sufficient reasons, we also think that he was right in not attaching any weight to the views expressed in the book cited in support of such traditional evidence. As Lionel Brett JSC, as event was rightly in our view once pointed out in a learned address given by him at the University of Lagos to the Nigerian Association of Law Teachers, smaller quote again, the courts are not to be hypnotized by the authority of print. The crucial fact is that books cannot be cross-examined, either as to the opinions expressed or as to the claims of the author to have special knowledge. If the author is living, there is no reason why he should not be tendered as an expert when this difficulty would vanish. End quote of that side. Then the Supreme Court went on to say, moreover, none of the authors of these books in that Kumagba's case testified in support of the views stated therein, and no explanation was given for the omission. For all these reasons, we share the apprehensions of the learned trial judge about the value or weight of the traditional evidence as narrated by each of these authors, particularly as the authenticity and impartiality of the sources of their narratives cannot, for obvious reasons, be easily ascertained. End quote. I wanted to say that is the exact same situation we are confronted with here as regards both the European Observer Mission report and its brother ECOWAS Election Observer report. For purposes of proving the opinions expressed in them by their makers, neither of them is of any higher value than the mere sheets of paper on which it is recorded. And for those who, like the petitioners, are enamored by the now very familiar patronizing judgments passed on elections, regularly passed on elections, by European election observer missions every 4 years. Even as the same Europeans have maintained a deafening silence on the never-ending complaints of former President Donald Trump, that the year 2020 presidential elections of the United States that saw him out of office was also a fraud, it may interest them to know that Sir Justice Lionel Brett, who made the comment cited approvingly by the Supreme Court in Okumagba's case that I read above, was also a European. He's British. He was British. I think I intend to stop here. I think I've said enough. It is for these few additions, but much more for the far more illuminating reasons advanced by my brother Haruna Samani JSC, his rulings and judgments, which reasons I concur with without reservation, that I also hold all 3 consolidated petitions not proved and thereby enter another dismissing all of them, and I find the declaration of second respondent Bola Ahmed Tinubu by second respondent as the person duly and properly returned winner of the 25th February 2023 presidential election of this country and duly elected president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I also abide by all other consequential orders, including that as a cause contained in the leading judgments.